Hello. How are you?
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. Welcome, everybody. I'm Janine Purves. I am donor motivation consultant, and also my other hat that I wear is an advisor with Assante Capital Management, and I've been doing that for over 25 years. And I'm really excited to be hosting our Campfire chat today to be speaking with Dilmini Bonas, who is a wealth planning expert at Assante Private Client. I'm probably not supposed to call her an expert. She's a wealth planner, but she is an expert because we worked together on a number of cases and she's been extremely helpful. Today's topic is how to inspire and create legacy conversations with families. And I'm really excited to be able to share this with you because it's something that I have had, I don't know if fun is the right word, but I've had a lot of interesting conversations trying to build up that exposure for clients. So Dilmini has been amazing in helping me with a few cases and find ways of speaking with those clients, but I'm going to let her introduce herself in a little bit more detail so you guys get to know her background.
Thanks, Janine. So yes, I'm actually by training an estate planning lawyer. So I was in private practice before joining CI Assante Private Client about 5 years ago. So I was in private practice dealing with estate planning as well as estate litigation. So I've seen a lot. And then now in my role, I work more as a consultant, working with clients in putting together high net worth clients, particularly putting together their estate plan, and a major part for a lot of our clients of their estate plan is philanthropic planning. So that's in a nutshell what I do.
Thank you. So I know campfire chats, we're sitting around a campfire, we're supposed to have a drink. And both Dilmini and I have had a few things where we weren't feeling so well. So my favorite drink that I just had for the first time in the Netherlands was simply ginger and lemon tea. How boring does that sound, guys? But no tea bag required. It was fresh slices of ginger, fresh lemon, and then just a few drops of honey as according to you need. And honestly, I had a sore throat. I was feeling a little run down and it was such a treat. So on some of these cool fall nights, if you are around a campfire, I highly recommend you give it a try. What are you drinking?
So I'm drinking actually a Sri Lankan roasted coriander tea called Kuttamali. So I'm trying to stay healthy these days. Got 2 young kids and there's viruses throughout the house. So to stay healthy, I'm just trying to keep my immunity up. So I'm drinking this coriander tea all day. I'm drinking coriander tea.
So we're not the party animals for you guys, but honestly, we'll have great chats around the campfire. So Dilmini, let's just start by maybe you can share a little bit about the journey of how you are helping clients with that legacy discussion. What is the first stage?
So really the first stage, I think at the outset of every estate plan conversation, we do ask our clients, what is do you have any charitable giving intentions that you'd like to achieve in your overall estate plan? That's a question we ask all of our clients. And depending, initially they might just at the outset say, no, we're not charitably inclined. Charity starts at home for us. We just want to make sure our kids. And then there are the other clients who have given their whole life, and charitable giving is a very big part of who they are, and the legacy that they want to leave behind. So we have the question to our clients immediately at the discovery stage for our estate plan, and we make sure that if it's of interest, we build that in. It's a very big, strong, important part of their estate plan. And if they say no at the outset, it doesn't mean that the doors close entirely. It might be something after we unpack the tax calculations and what greater meaning they want to put to their estate plan. It might be a conversation we might have down the road, but it's definitely something we ask all of our clients.
Okay. I actually want to mention one quick thing, and I don't think you mentioned it in your introduction, just that Dilmini is a member of STEP.
Oh, yes.
And which is really getting into detail and talking a lot of experts about estate planning. Many of you might be members, and she also has her MFAP. So she has really been doing her due diligence to make sure that she's becoming an expert. See, maybe I really can use that word. Anyways, okay. So one of the things that I know we do is often when we're having this conversation is, first of all, I guess, who are we trying to talk to? In your case, I know it's the private client people that are looking to do the estate plan. Is there any items that you specifically look for or triggers that you get you started in this journey that you think can be really helpful for the people on our call?
Yeah, for sure. So the obvious client situation that you and I have dealt with quite a bit is the liquidity event in a client's life. So they're either selling their business, they have received a big inheritance, or they maybe won a lottery winning. So there's a big liquidity event in their life, and all of a sudden they're re-examining how much money they have, how much money they'll need, and what they really want to do with that wealth. So a liquidity event is a great trigger point to look out for. So and you need with for example, with a business sale, timing is very important. So you need to be tuned in to the client situation, know when they're considering selling, when they have, had buyers approach them or interested buyers approach them, and have that charitable giving piece really thought through with the client, so that you know what the taxes are going to be, how much of those taxes are we looking to offset, and how can we accomplish that planning for that client. It is a very time sensitive planning piece, so you have to know what's really happening in your client's life if it's like a business sale or something like that they'd be dealing with. So yes, for sure, that's one. That's a trigger. Another thing that I've been coming across recently is clients in dealing with their estate plan and reviewing their estate plan. Oftentimes it's the first time that they're seeing the magnitude of their wealth. And I had a client situation just recently where we met, reviewed their estate plan, put the net wealth statement in front of the client, and they were blown away by the size of the magnitude. Oh, sorry, is there a hearing? I'm just seeing in the chat. There's a hearing. People are having a hard time hearing.
Okay, Dilmini. Maybe both of you, sorry, Serena here, I'm producing in the background. Maybe we just have you just speak a little louder so we can make sure the mic's picking up on both ends.
Sounds good. I'll do that.
Thank you.
Okay. No problem. So yeah, just was describing that client situation I had recently. The client saw for the first time the magnitude of their wealth, and it was really quite funny. She was embarrassed by how much money they had accumulated, the size of their estate, and they had one child who was going to be receiving it all. And that had them worried. It actually had the client questioning if she had done everything she needed to set that child up with the right values and the right mindset to ensure that the money doesn't actually get in the way of that child's success, and it doesn't actually be a hindrance for them. So we got to talking about creating a good inheritor with the client. And a big part of creating a good inheritor is talking to the children, or the child in this case, about the parents' deep passion for charitable giving and wanting to do something more with their wealth, and ensuring that those ideas also transfer to the kids along with the wealth. So it's a trigger point that I'm much more tuned into, where it's not just, talking about philanthropy in isolation. It's helping a client really round out their estate plan and ensuring that there's a transfer of wealth alongside the values, so that it's that legacy that the client would like to pass down is transferred in a very meaningful way to the next generation.
I do agree. It is so important. And I want to bring up one more piece of that, is that when you're dealing with clients over long term, now I realize some advisors that might be on this call, this could be the case. Some of the charities, you're in and out, and maybe that's harder to build that relationship. But as I have seen clients over how many years I've been in the business, many of them I've been working with for more than 20 years, they have grown from being somebody who was a good saver and somebody who was in a good position to all of a sudden being quite wealthy. And that in our heads, we don't always adjust to that. So we are always, most of us are in some kind of mode of making sure we're taking care of ourselves, even no matter how much we want to do elsewhere. It's not going to do any good if we can't take care of ourselves. So we have to kind of help them see those opportunities of giving back and the value in that. And when we talk about the values, that what do they want to get across, what's important to them, it's really about having those conversations that, what has had some impact in their life, what has been a trigger moment. And while Dilmini, you mentioned the liquidity issues that come up are the times when there's funds there that can be utilized effectively. The reality is that most of the trigger moments in our life were things that happened where we suffered a loss, or there was some major issue that we felt something wasn't handled fairly, or again, there was suffering or something that you realize you don't want somebody else to have to deal with that. And is there any way you can make a difference going forward?
Yeah, and to have those conversations with the client, to really have them open up to you in that way, it takes time. And I think that's not something I realized early on in my career. Early on in my career, it was very much about the practicalities. How can I get all the instructions I need to draft the right will, and with all checks and, in place to make sure that it's in accordance with the law. And that was my priority. And I was a nervous junior lawyer, making sure that I wasn't going to get sued for drafting a poor will. But now with the confidence that I've gained through the MFA pre-program and just conversations and successes I've had in my career, I know that it takes time, and clients want you to slow down and have that conversation. They don't want to rush through their estate plan. They want to really sit with you and explain to you, not all clients, but most of the clients really want to open up to you in that way, tell you how they achieved all those successes, what helping hands they've received along the way, and how they would like to return the favor. And that takes a few meetings. And I think I shared this with you once. It took me, I think, 4 meetings with one particular client. They were in their 80s. And we went through the tax calculations. We talked about who their executor is going to be. We went through all of those, check the box kind of estate planning discussions. But it was around the 3rd or 4th meeting that we really got to talk about philanthropy and charitable giving, because it flagged for me that they were interested, but we never really talked about what it is they wanted to do. So around the 3rd or 4th meeting, these clients just shared that they had this real wish, this dream to open up a playground and donate money to the city to set up a playground. And I thought, oh, okay, that sounds nice. That sounds interesting. And then as the conversation progressed, they shared that they had lost a child back like 30 years before. They had lost their child at six, and that really hit home for me. And hearing about that and how they've been carrying this with them for so long. They were very wealthy, but they've never had the time or the opportunity to sit there and see how they were going to actually put the wheels in motion to put that charitable giving in place. So after that conversation, I can say for sure that my relationship with that client was changed forever. I knew them on a very deep emotional level, and I knew something that they've been carrying, in this for so long. And I was trying to find a way to help them with kind of unburdening that loss that they had had. So it was incredible, but it takes time. It took 3 or 4 meetings before we got to that place, and it's not something you can rush. So you have to have that time in your calendar and prepare your clients to also to make that time to have those deeper conversations.
Yeah, I think a few simple trigger questions to help to generate the conversation. And if they're very open-ended, maybe you can take it in a certain direction. And that is just, has there been something that, has impacted you that makes you think about giving in the past, or just small pieces, or, what has been something that has really truly helped your life that you might think you want to give back. So just small pieces that can get you starting that conversation, because often if they're not open to it, you've got to plan your timing. I think we talked about this. I have a few clients that they've said, oh, my charity is my family. And I know they give, but they're not really to give more, because again, they need to make sure that certain things are being taken care of. And so, but they are in a position that they can do more. And it's just about helping them to see that in different ways. And if there's a way we can share with the family of the values and passing that on, that something has had impact for the whole family and they can be engaged, they're going to tend to give more in that direction. So whether that's a charity or a whole topic for a number of charities, it's amazing when they get involved and they're all in support of it. It becomes a family event instead of just a tax saving strategy.
Oh, absolutely. To your point, you need to know as an advisor when to put your foot on the gas and when to hit the brake on these conversations. Because I find with some clients, and this is a client that you have, I've sat in a conference room with you with this client and sensed that when the charitable giving conversation came up, they got a bit defensive. They felt like we were maybe virtue signaling, suggesting to them that we didn't think they were a good person because they didn't have any charitable giving intentions. And so you need to know and read the room and hit the brakes on a conversation like that, because they might just have, they've been working so hard to achieve the successes that they've had, and they may have come from absolutely nothing. And that scarcity mindset is really difficult to overcome for a lot of people. And I can completely understand that. But if you can help them in getting to a place where they can understand that their wealth is more than they need, they can take care of their kids and actually create meaningful legacy within their family to ensure that there's going to be generational wealth if you're able to transfer those values, and not just the money. If you're able to teach them about looking beyond themselves and to their community and giving back in that way. But it takes time, like I said. So you need to know when the client is open to it. Then's when they're getting defensive about the conversation. And then know when to pick up the conversation again, because most clients will want to have that conversation with you. It's just timing is key. So if they get overly defensive, they don't want to talk to you about it because they feel maybe they're feeling judged because it's not something they've given thought to. If they get too defensive, you might not be the advisor that they come back to have that conversation. So it has to be open-ended, put the idea out there, read the room, and maybe pick it up down the road when they're ready to, once they've maybe had a time to process everything that they've accumulated, and better understand that they don't need so much to hold on to it to get past that scarcity mindset.
It is part that the spreadsheet idea, which, it's the technical, and going down to the numbers is always important, because then they can see there's money left over no matter what happens. We have all these plans if we're preparing that in a planning manner. But the other side of it is, doesn't matter what's on the page, doesn't matter what's in that spreadsheet. It's about the mindset too. So how do we get them to start to consider that different mindset? And I find I call it the drip factor, where it's a very small steps to get them to build up to thinking about this and different ways of approaching it. So that's harder for charity, but you also have to go in, from a charity standpoint, you have to go in recognizing, what impact and why they've chosen to give to your charity, and start to unravel where that is, like sort of, peel that onion back, so to speak, to find out what the driver is. Because, you're not the only charity, probably. Sorry, guys, but that's probably a reality. But the idea is, what is it about your charity that really resonates with them? So that's what you can take advantage of. And I mean, that's obvious for you guys, but it's about making sure that there's not too much pressure on the one item until they've sort of opened up and got rid of, I'll say, that scarcity mindset. It's really important, and it's hard to know. So they have to be willing to talk. I guess that's where partnering with advisors or understanding how they approach things can be helpful, because then the charities can be in a better position to manage that. Okay, so I want to just touch on, we've talked about a few key triggers. Is there any other kind of triggers or clues that allow us to continue that conversation?
I really feel like you have to, as an advisor, kind of walk the walk too, and not just talk the talk. So if you are involved in charities, if you are involved in organizing with these charities, and you just, you're just explaining to a client what you did on the weekend or what you're doing that evening, and if you're very involved with charities that are important to you, those conversations come up more organically as well. The client is open to saying, oh yeah, I'd be interested in attending that event, or I'd like to hear more. And then you're able to introduce charitable giving, just in understanding what their week was like. It's a part of who you are, and when you're walking that walk, it's much more natural and organic, and the client is going to be more interested in engaging in that type of conversation. I think you do that, Janine. You are very involved with the charities that are important to you, right? So
yeah, there's been a number of things over the years. And in fact, I kind of commented and joked a few times about the family values and how to instill those. And I ran an event, The Joy of Aging, for 11 years in support of our local hospital. And it was really great because we got involved in the community. We had a lot of local businesses supporting the event, and then had people coming out. It was all about healthy aging for women. But the idea was, I got my kids, I kind of voluntold them they had to, get those high school volunteer hours in, and they could help at Joy of Aging. They didn't always want to, but they recognized that I was doing this. My whole branch was doing this. It was important. We were giving back, and that was part of it. And so, that sort of sunk in with them. So even though they were, they joke about the fact that they helped out for a number of years, well beyond high school, most of the time they knew that they probably could and should, and it didn't become so much of you have to. But I guess they saw that over time, and that's an important piece. So I think both of them are doing that in their own ways now as they are young adults as well. So sharing the value system, I guess. So good inheritors is a big piece, and recognizing how that money can be used, and then how giving back can be a family decision as well. I have a number of clients that have taken that upon themselves, where they want to be engaged in what's really important to the family, and have, in a few cases, due to selling a business or a number of structural changes, have set up either a donor advised fund or giving to a charity on an annual basis in a larger amounts than they have historically. And it's making a difference because they're able to do it as a couple or as a family, and help to direct funds to things that they think are really critical. So it's been a great experience, and obviously getting to know them as well, because you are touching a much deeper core. I want to just touch on a couple of other things. Maybe let's touch on a couple cases. You mentioned the one about the playground. Maybe we can touch on a couple of other cases where we've walked through the journey of how we were able to get some substantial success in giving, in philanthropy, and generate that broader conversation.
Yeah, the one that comes to mind is that the file that we worked on a bit together, the client where they had this major liquidity event. I think they sold their business for a multiple they would have never imagined, right? And then you help them, and the timing was very key in that file, right? I remember in working with them, it was, we had a sale that was going to happen. Their year end was happening shortly thereafter. We had to make sure that if they wanted to continue with the charitable giving that they had anyways been a part of throughout their life, and to make a more significant donation, that timing was key. So we had to be prepared with the tax calculations, present to them all the various gifts, the magnitudes of gifts they could give, and then talking to them about the different vehicles that they could use to do their charitable giving on the longer term. And I feel like that client situation, because you were so well prepared with the tax calculations, the different vehicles, and you were ready for that conversation, it just made it easier for them in a pretty complicated stage in their life, right? To sell their business and to enter a new stage in their life. It's a bit overwhelming sometimes to also think about this new thing that you're introducing of maybe a donor advised fund or a private foundation. So you, as the advisor, had to do a lot of the legwork and the thinking through for them, so that you're just presenting ideas.
Well, with the help of the wealth planning team, they were absolutely critical in doing much of the work. But the point, I guess the key is really, we knew the client, we knew this was happening. We knew it was being discussed for a year. And then all of a sudden there was a deadline, and there was a few deadlines that were all happening at the same time. We had a maximum of 60 days to be able to make the decision, because the year end was not December 31st. So all that had all to play in this, with this liquidity event. And what we were able to do, one positioning that we were able to do, was touch on the client, what was important to them. It was well beyond what they ever expected to sell their business for. And recognizing the funding of that, how much access, recognizing that they were really going to have this business that was a key income earner for them as a family as well. And because they had been charitable giving, maybe what we do is we take a larger lump sum, and then in this case, because of the short-term decision, we did go with the donor advised fund. It gave them time to make the decision on the giving, but then the giving as to the direction and the charities that they impacted, they had more time to deal with that. So we kind of helped them. They had been very philanthropic all around, but we walked through a whole philanthropic journey with them, which started with just the tax calculations. This is a big amount that you can do now, which will help you to continue doing what you've always done. But now with this larger amount, we'll take advantage of some of the tax breaks at this point. So by looking at it in a few different ways, by helping from the tax standpoint, what we did is we also simplified their decisions. they didn't need to make all the decisions at once. They had to already make enough that were huge and were exhausting. So what we did is, well, really all we need to do is decide what you're comfortable with in this category. So how much do we think we need to donate and save? And then show you how that can benefit you going to offset. So we just try to keep it as simple as possible, and then the different priorities. The tax calculations are important, but honestly, it's really more about the values and just how does that work for what you're trying to create in terms of their values. Because frankly, the family, this one family I'm referring to, is continuing to give beyond what they did with that initial. They're doing a good amount, and all of them separately, because the kids are adults, making their own decisions now as well. They do a good amount every year. So they have really, really embraced that philanthropic journey, and it's wonderful. In terms of, I'm just thinking, and I had another case which was interesting. We just have a few minutes left, but I'll just quickly. And the client knew certain things they were going to do. In this case, it was an inheritance. It was a trigger. They never expected to be in the position they were. They've always been somewhat philanthropic, but they realized now they can actually move to the next level. So that was that took a while for them to approach and process. And then so certain things that had always been important to them, but they couldn't support other than by volunteering, they could now support in a bigger way. And that allowed them to think about it. So those clients, they have some charities that they give to directly. But we also set something up to make sure that they gave over time, to make sure that if anything extreme happened, they wouldn't run out of money. So there's lots of strategies. They could have done a really big lump sum, but we spread it out over a few years, and that gave them the comfort level so that that scarcity mindset could be offset. And now every year they give more and more. So we're going beyond what we had originally forecast. But at this point, I think we have just a few minutes left. So there's a few triggers, there's a few ideas, there's a few questions that are leading that you can get into the conversation. Various trigger points, such as looking at a tax return or understanding, if there was a specific event that we want to share. And I know Dilmini and I have talked about having this as more of a workshop idea and maybe sharing it further at some point. So we're happy to do that. So I'm actually going to encourage you, if you have questions, if you have any tips, maybe we can even look at case studies at some point. But if you're interested in learning more about this and maybe taking it on, so how you would approach it, so we can share ideas, we would be really keen to be able to help you with that. Do you have anything to add, Dilmini?
No, absolutely. I'm seeing there's a lot of questions about AMT, and definitely we can definitely reach out and answer some of those questions afterward. But I think just to close and kind of sum up and give an overall response, I think with most of our client situations, what we do like to lead with is that philanthropic intention. And it's, yes, there's tax calculations, and we talk about taxes with our clients because it is a part of charitable giving. But if we focus in on the charitable goals and wishes of a client and make that the focus, then even when there are tax changes like the changes proposed for the AMT, it's the charitable giving that's driving that decision and not a tax, it's not a tax decision. So it's easier for the client to digest as well as their changes. So my suggestion is just have conversations with your client, keep it charitably giving focused, and have those conversations often, and be open to longer conversation.
And understand, if there's any way you can understand or figure out when various trigger events could happen, maybe if you've had leading with sharing a few stories and different ideas that might apply, that can really help to get them thinking behind the scenes, so that when they're ready to talk, you're available, right? And that's really key, being there at the right time. With these campfire chats, we're always open to new ideas. I see Les Ross wrote about the research indicates Canadians give from the heart, not for the tax break, but the tax planning has the greatest impact on the size of the gift. And that's absolutely it. And for some people, saving that money is a trigger point, because again, it gets rid of the scarcity mindset. And then they feel free to be able to do what their heart tells them. So there's different ways to approach it with different people, and no one set rule. Now, lots of people are mentioning AMT, alternative minimum tax. It's a big issue right now. I know there's a few things coming up with it, but honestly, it's too big topic for us to take on today, but I know there's a bunch of things coming up over the next few weeks where you can certainly sign up for. I know I have. So I look forward to that. Last, I want to remind you, next month, we will have another topic. Tina Tehranchian is interviewing Nicola Elkins, founder and CEO of Benefaction Foundation. And I know it's going to be a great topic. Let's talk DAFs, how donors and charities can work, how donor advised funds and charities can work together, because honestly, they're not the enemy. They really are the friend. It's just a case of understanding how they work and how that can help. Because look at my case in that one client. They could not make a decision on any one charity. They would never have done as much. It was too difficult for the timing. So it was the perfect solution. And now lots of charities are benefiting that didn't know they were going to. So it's a win-win all around. Thanks a lot, everybody. Have a wonderful day.